It's Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. I'm Greg Nibbler, and this is Digital Trends Live. Yes, this is indeed Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and more. So thanks for joining. Let's get started. Elon Musk has been touting Tesla Battery Day for months now, and it's finally here today. So you may also be asking, what's Battery Day? Well, it's actually part of this year's annual shareholders presentation, but the Battery Day part comes from some production announcements Tesla is expected to make. Elon Musk said they will blow your mind. So what could it be? Well, the goal of EV batteries is to make them cheaper, lighter, and to last longer, with the longest charge for a commercial model currently lasting at about 300 miles-ish. One rumor has Tesla unveiling a new biscuit tin battery, which is so named because image leaks have it looking like a tin of biscuits. The advantage of the design could mean lower cost, higher capacity, and both of those are good things. There will also probably be more talk about gigafactories as far as improving the ability to mass produce them. But if he's going to blow our minds, then we could see something about the million-mile battery, which would in theory be a battery that would have a lifespan of 1,000,000 miles. This would be something that could reduce the cost enough to where electric vehicles could be sold at competitive prices to gas vehicles, and that's a big turning point. Tesla may also announce the formation of an electric utility to go along with their charging stations. So the broadcast is at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and you can watch it right here. Read more about it at digitaltrends.com. As TikTok is awaiting word on approval of its tech partnership with Oracle and Walmart, it's released a transparency report that details some of its activities. So according to the report, TikTok had to take down 104 million videos in violations of its policies from January to June of this year alone, which is double what it took down in the 6 months prior. TikTok is battling spam and misinformation and hate speech and violent content all thrown in there. They did say that the 104 million videos represents only 1% of what was uploaded, and that 96% of them were caught before being reported. They also said they received 226 information requests from law enforcement agencies in the U.S. and complied with 85% of them. They also said they proposed a coalition with 9 other social media and content platforms to help battle hate speech and harmful content. The idea is a security person from each organization would meet and share information. All social media platforms are battling this kind of stuff, but you can read more about TikTok's efforts at digitaltrends.com. Blue Origin is launching another test of its new Shepard rocket on Thursday, this time with a few firsts. Blue Origin is, of course, founded by Jeff Bezos, and the new Shepard rockets are designed to take astronauts and payloads into space and even the moon. The rockets are also designed to be reusable. This will be the 7th time this particular one has been used. The test will be carrying 12 different payloads to space and back, and for the first time, they'll be attached to the outside of the rocket instead of inside. Blue Origin believes this will open up the possibilities for new high-altitude and space experiments with equipment and sensors actually getting real-time data from the environment. One of the pieces of equipment on the test flight will be a lunar landing sensor module that would also be able to read the surface environment it's approaching and land within 100 meters of a designated location. This is something that NASA could use in its Artemis program that will bring 2 people back to the moon in 2024. Space competition is always great, so check out the details of this launch at digitaltrends.com. And a real-life Gundam robot is looming over the Gundam factory in Yokohama, Japan, and according to a newly released video, it's now fully movable. So this is all part of an amusement park that's been planned for years in Japan, but was delayed because of the pandemic. And for those that don't know, the Gundam is part of Japanese science fiction and anime culture, and the franchise has made billions of dollars in TV shows, movies, and merchandise, so it makes sense that it would get its own amusement park. The full-scale robot stands at 59 feet tall and weighs about 25 metric tons. Now, this video is speeded up a little bit, but still, it showcases some of the abilities of it. It's built with a complete skeleton, can move everything from its arms and legs to its fingers and even its eyes, which is not terrifying at all. It was even blessed by Shinto priests when they attached the head. So the park is scheduled to now open in October. Perhaps the robot apocalypse is on the docket for 2021. You can read more about this at digitaltrends.com. That's totally not scary. All right, continuing on here with Digital Trends Live, we are now going to be joined by the one and only Drew Prindle for another edition of Awesome Tech You Can't Buy Yet. Drew, always good to see you.
Hey, good to see you as well.
So which one of these things do you want to start off with here first? Drew, by the way, scours the internet looking for some of the strangest, sometimes coolest crowdfunding campaigns that you can find out there and then showcases them for us. Which one are we starting with?
Let's start with this Arduby drone. So I'm sure you've
Okay.
heard of these like single board computers, kind of like Arduino or Raspberry Pi. They're those little, basically super simplified computers that you can attach whatever peripherals and add-ons and sensors and whatever, and develop your own little mini computer. This is basically that exact same idea, but on a drone. So it's a little single PCB drone with all of the components that it needs, all of the processors, all of the motion sensors, all of that stuff. But you can add on different modules. So you can swap in different propellers, you can swap in SD cards, you can add camera modules, you can add sensors, and you can basically just program the drone to do anything you want. So if you have any like programming chops and you want to play around with programming a drone instead of just a little static computer, this is for you.
That is pretty cool, actually, to be able to put that kind of power to just let people be creative with it. I'm anticipating there's going to be some that you don't want to see made, but nonetheless, that's actually really cool to put that out there so that people can start making their own drones. So that's the R2B open source micro drone, $288. That is one of the Kickstarting campaigns. Let's go on to the next one here.
All right, next up, let's talk about the Flector Zero. So this is one that I actually backed years ago in an earlier incarnation of it. At first glance, they basically just look like any other reflector for your bike, but these things, I'm here to tell you, are out of control. I don't know how they make them, but somehow they are like orders of magnitude more reflective than normal reflective tape or just, any reflective material that I've ever seen. So instead of like normally when you... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, like, what makes them so reflective? Like, that just seems strange to me.
I honestly don't know. It's normally stuff is generally, they call it, it's like retro reflective, so it only really reflects back at you when you're shining a light directly at it. But somehow they've engineered these things so that even when light's hitting it from like an oblique angle, it still reflects back at you very, very brightly. So it just makes you insanely visible. And the cool thing is it doesn't require any power. So you're effectively putting like bike lights on your bike that never run out of battery and never stop working. And these new ones are like the smallest ones that they've made. They fit on your spokes. They don't create any aerodynamic drag. They're just awesome. So if you ride a bike or commute to work via bicycle, I highly recommend checking out these things.
Yeah, and the price isn't bad either. I want to back that one because that's a pretty good deal for something like that. It's so simple, but that's really, really cool. So that's the Flector Zero, and so $18 I think is what it works out to be, like 15 euros or something like that. Yeah, to back them. That's really cool. It looks like a lot of people are wanting to back that one as well because I'm seeing where it's funded. They asked for $6,000 and they're at 156,000 with 12 days to go. I'm going to add into that myself after this one. So Flector
Nice.
Zero, performance bike reflector. Check that one out. And then what is our final one here for awesome tech?
All right, the last one is this weird little thing called Trexo Wheels. So it's basically a robotic tabletop video dolly. So if you're not familiar with what a dolly is, it's basically just a little wheeled rig for you to roll a camera on so that you can get really smooth shots. They use them in Hollywood all the time for big cameras, but this one is designed for little cameras, and it's designed to be used on a countertop, on like a nice flat surface. These exist already, but most of them aren't motorized. Typically, I mean, you can get them and they're made with like rollerblade wheels and you can push them around the table manually. But the problem with that is the motion isn't always super smooth when you're the person moving it yourself. So this thing basically solves that problem by putting motors on it. So you can tell it the path that you want to go and it will remember where you pushed it. And then when you hit a button, it'll autonomously and smoothly just wheel itself around. And you'll get super slick, dynamic shots. It's probably great for just like product photography and pretty much any video where you would want a close-up of something.
That's what I was thinking, like product photography in particular. Like that's a great use case, or I don't know. That just looks fun to use in general to come up with some kind of project for it. And that's the Trexo wheels. So also pledged was $40,000 was the goal. They're at $259,000 with 15 days to go. There are so many people at home and bored and trying to make films right now or shoot anything. I can imagine this is going to be super popular. So that's pretty awesome. So again, that's Trexo Wheels, and that's part of Awesome Tech. You can't buy yet. Where Drew scours the internet finding these different crowdfunding campaigns and brings them to us. We got them all listed too at digitaltrends.com, where you can go through and take a look at all the past ones. Drew, as always, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Drew Prindle here for Awesome Tech. You can't buy yet. We do that every single week, so it's always fun. We've got a lot coming up here on the show today, though, so I want to thank everybody who's joining us, wherever you are. We appreciate it, and we've got more to talk about coming up here in just a second. We've got Julia Landauer. Now, she's a NASCAR driver and a motivational speaker and a STEM education advocate. She's joining us to talk about all of that and more. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button because we get to talk to some pretty amazing people. And our next guest is a NASCAR driver, a motivational speaker, and an advocate for STEM education and more. It's Julia Landauer. Julia, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So many different things I want to ask you. But to start off, just in general, your career is so interesting to me, and I want to know how you got interested in car racing in the beginning and what it was like for that very first professional race with NASCAR.
For sure. So I started racing go-karts when I was 10 years old. And originally it was an activity that my parents wanted me to get into, but also my younger sister and brother, partially so that we could all do something together on the weekends, partially because I think my dad really wanted to race when he was little. But then also it was a very technology-centric sport where women and men, boys and girls could compete head-to-head with each other to the highest levels. So that was really cool. I loved it. I started winning right away. And then I moved to cars when I was 13, won my first championship in the Skip Barber Racing Series when I was 14, and then continued to climb the ranks. Switched over to NASCAR NASCAR style when I was about 16. And I would say my first really pro race in NASCAR was when I was in 2015 when I raced in a limited late model series in Virginia at a racetrack called Motor Mile Speedway. And it was the first time where I was out of college and didn't have to balance school with racing. And I was really nervous, really excited, had no excuses. And I ended up winning half the races and then became their champion. So that was really cool. I feel like for me, that was my confirmation that I deserved to be there. And then it's been fun ever since.
Yeah, I would say being a champion right out of the gate is a pretty good way to start off with that. One of the things you also mentioned too on the technological side, and I find that really interesting. And you just recently tweeted something about following along with your heart rate data over a 2-hour practice. And I was wondering how that ties in to your performance and your training. How does tracking something like that help out for a race?
Definitely. Well, first and foremost, racers are totally athletes. It's really hot in the cars. It's sometimes over 130 degrees inside the car. We're fighting the G forces. It's thousands of pounds of metal that you're driving around, and so it's really important to be in good physical shape and have good endurance. And so I started using my Polar watch a few years ago, just to be able to monitor my heart rate, make sure I was getting enough calories, also. But it's really important because what I found in that 2-hour practice session, and that's not even the intensity of racing, that's just, practice, is that my heart rate reached 184 beats per minute and its average was 137. So having that data and those biometrics to be able to incorporate into my training with my trainer, Podium Performance Fitness in the Charlotte area, is really crucial just for optimizing our performance, just like any other athlete.
Interesting. Yeah. Is there any other piece of technology that you use with that as far as the actual training side, or a piece of tech that you wish you could incorporate into racing?
Yeah, so a couple of different things that we use. One, on a very basic level, just use a lot of apps and a lot of, mind games. And before I get in the car, I do different kind of reaction time games on my app, because I noticed in training, I would then go back and do something physical and it was that much better and more reactive. So I use that very simple tool. We do a bunch of neurological training on that note. And then also we use things like strobe goggles to really help like minimize our visual input, so that when we're in the car, when we've got distractions going on, we can still react really quickly. And the thing that I love, I'm racing in the European NASCAR series this year. What I really love is that we have in-car data analytics, so we can see everything from throttle pressure to brakes to RPMs. And being able to really analyze that data helps me as a racer. Some people just, go out and feel what they need to do. I find the data really helpful because it's very concrete. Like, this is where you can do better, so go do it. And
Right.
then it just makes it really easy.
I love that incorporation of, naturally we're a technology, but I love that incorporation of it to add into that, and in addition to being an athlete using that, and something else I want to talk about too is just the STEM education side of things. Now I know you're a big advocate for it, and there are a lot of changes and things that need to happen with that. But what are some of the big challenges that women and girls face for STEM career paths?
Well, I think it's a loaded question. I think a couple of things. One, access. I mean, like really quality STEM education, whether it's on the coding side or the more mechanical side, it's not available everywhere. And so I think that's a big part of it. But also there's a cultural component where, girls who are good at math and science and technical fields are considered nerdy or not liked, or, there are all these negative connotations with it. So I think trying to fight that, but then also to be supportive of girls who want to go into these different careers, and to show early on what you can do out there, and, how many, like all industries incorporate some aspect of STEM. And so while it's not for everybody, I think if you see a little girl who's interested and you can help push those spatial awareness games and, tech games, I think you really get to see, oh, maybe she wants to do this. So a lot of it's in home, a lot of it's in school. There are a lot of different components, just like anything. But I think the stereotypes and the, not encouraging girls to go after technological fields or STEM fields is really where there's a big obstacle.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And that's very interesting, some of the different things that you just said right there, as far as different ways to engage and make sure that people can get into this field if they want to get into that, or encourage that. Something I wanted to ask you, being now that you're obviously a role model for a lot of people yourself and you're in this field, for you coming up, who were some of your role models?
Yeah, so great question. I have a couple in the industry. So Lynn St. James has been a mentor of mine. She's a really successful female racer, is now retired. And so she was huge. Honestly, people like Paul Newman, who got to, he set his heart to something and he went and did a lot of different things, which I think is really cool, that Renaissance person kind of mentality. And then also, greats like Michael Schumacher and Mark Martin. I think really seeing people excel and go after what they want and ask questions and, demand the performance of their team. I think that's just a really cool thing to have. And drivers really are kind of the leaders of their teams, where everyone's at the track so that we can drive fast and go try to win some races. So being able to look up to those guys and ladies and, see how they do stuff and try to pick what I like about it and then incorporate it into my own life has been a lot of fun.
I love that. Well, I could definitely see why you're a motivational speaker in addition to being a NASCAR champion. So this all makes sense. For everybody out there too, I want them to know how to follow along with everything you're doing, whether it's racing or whether it's talking in social media. Where should I direct people to follow you?
For sure. Thank you. So my website, you see that, julialandauer.com, also at Julia Landauer across all social media. I update all of them regularly. It's a little different sometimes, but it's really fun to interact with fans and with people who are just interested in some of the same stuff. So I love hearing from you. Please feel free to reach out and go after what you want. I just tweeted yesterday that, you don't have to justify your dreams to anybody. It's just about going after them with conviction. And I think that's something that's really important, especially in this day and age. So that would be my last words of advice.
Yeah, you nailed it. Julia, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you for having me.
Julia Landauer here on Digital Trends Live. That was great. So follow along with everything that she is doing. We've got more coming up here on the show. We've got Marawi Jaraima, who's going to be joining us next to talk about his new film, Residue, which is on Netflix. A lot to tackle in that, so stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hey everybody, welcome to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Not welcome, I guess you've been here the whole time, but sometimes tech issues happen, so we will reschedule with our guest and get him on another time. But I do have some breaking news I wanted to get to you, and it is this: Amazon Prime Day has been scheduled. So normally, Prime Day takes place in July. It's usually sometime in there. We don't usually have the date, but last year it was 2 days. Now, we found out it's going to be taking place on October 13th, and this is according to rumors. Now, this is from according to people with knowledge of the plans, but this is the rumor that's coming out, is that this fits around kind of what Amazon's been talking about. There's confirmation that full-time warehouse workers had their vacation blacked out from October 13th to the 20th, so it does kind of make sense that October 13th, Tuesday, October 13th, will be Prime Day. I guess that's not official news from Amazon, but it's being reported in a lot of places. So I want to bring that to you. It's breaking. I'm finding out at the same time, but we keep you up to date with all of the breaking news about technology at digitaltrends.com, and that's what we do here. So I thank everybody for joining us. I want to remind you at 2:30 p.m. Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, today is our live Roundtable Tech podcast, Trends with Benefits. We're going to be talking about TikTok once again, about everything that's happened so far, but more importantly, what does this mean going forward? Not only for TikTok users, but for other users of apps. How does this going to play out? There are ramifications for so many different things, so we'll cover all of that on that episode. Again, 2:30 p.m. Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. Join us for that. Hit subscribe, and thank you for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll see you right back here tomorrow with another edition of Digital Trends Live.